welcome to the Dr. Mumbi Show. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray you're well, fam, in all your ways, and that you are living your best life. Thanks to every single person that has subscribed to this channel. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out Dr. Mumbi Live. Thanks to everyone who migrated there. We're at 40,000. I'm like, what? And we'll definitely be, reporting more of the international New World Order news there. But for now, there's a very disturbing story that I actually got coming out of Jamaica. Shout out to my Jamaican family. Thank you so much, fam, for all the support. And it shows that the Chinese firm has actually, with strong ties, to the Communist Party, has actually taken over Kingston Freeport Management Company, which basically means they are now managing and running and controlling 100% Kingston Freeport Management. Now, I got this from the Jamaican Observer, is it Observer Jamaica, whichever, that one. And it was basically talking about how, China Merchants Port Holdings was now had full control of the Kingston Port Terminal Limited, the entity that managed the Port of Kingston under a 30-year concession agreement with the government of Jamaica. And this was basically made possible because there was an international, which was basically French-based or French-led shipping and port management firm. I swear, how do we give away our ports? Are we that incompetent? This is so sad. This is what corruption has done. And the fact that so many of our presidents have, sworn their allegiance to the brotherhood that now is going to collapse their power, that is literally collapsing their presidencies as we see. Anyway, so this was basically made possible because there's a French-led shipping company called CMA CGM, and it sold its interests in the Kingston Free Trade Limited or Freeport Terminal Limited to a subsidiary company called Terminal Link, which was up to that point a joint venture of both the French CMA CGN, which had 51%, and the Chinese merchants, China merchants, who had 49%. But now, because of dire times or whatever, the French company, the CMA CGM, has actually sold its shares in the 30-year concession agreement to the Kingston Freeport Terminal Limited, which means that China Merchants now has full control of the managing entity of, Kingston Freeport. And I've never been to Jamaica, but this just sounds like the biggest port in Jamaica. This is so crazy. How did you guys allow this to happen? I know our governments probably do so many things because we almost lost Mombasa Port. If it's not already lost, we're waiting. We're waiting for them to even try and claim it. And so what they said is they sold their shares, and the deal was actually signed back in April 2015 to finance. So the joint venture between the French company and the Chinese company was signed in 2015 as a joint venture to finance, expand, and operate and maintain the port of Kingston. But recently, the China merchants had actually announced that that they would be taking over the Kingston Freeport, that one, Terminal Limited. So the Kingston port is basically lost to China. Is that what's happening? Please leave your comments below. I'd love to hear from our Jamaican brothers and sisters. And Africa, we better watch out. We better watch out because China is not joking. And China merchants actually announced that the company had also acquired 8 target terminals in the world. But get this, none of them was 100% owned, only the Kingston one. So they have one in Ukraine, which is 50%, Singapore, which is 49%, Netherlands, 30%, China, they had another port, 24%, Vietnam, about 47%, Thailand, 14%. But I was wrong. In Iraq, they own 100% of the port, and the same thing in Kingston, Jamaica. What? This is so sad. And apparently the Jamaican Observer got in touch with the Jamaican government, and they said that they were, the government was alerted of the international transfer ahead of the transaction being announced, but they didn't respond or do anything, probably because they signed their souls to the devil. And, we're not going to, China's not just going to walk away and say, oh, we gave you money and we did this and now we can, because I see a lot of governments across the continent are actually requesting, China to consider canceling some of the loans in the wake of COVID-19. Other senators have suggested that, a senator in Kenya suggested that we should actually send the COVID-19 bill, including the economic, fallout, to China. But I don't know if we're there. That would be pretty ballsy. But the divided states has been warning Jamaica for a very long time about this predatory nature of China, and America has reason to be afraid, because the Jamaican port is so close to the divided states. So it would be an easy place to launch any kind of weapon. Just say it. Anyway, let me know what you think of this story, fam. Thank you so much to all the people who have supported us on Patreon. I appreciate love each and every one of you. Please go ahead and consider joining our Patreon for as little as $2 a month. Until next time. Mwah.
Africans to seek to regain their independence from the colonial masters. Historians will remind us that we were first enslaved, that Africans were taken, and this we seldom say. The first civilization to take Africans out of this continent were the Arabs. And they took Africans from the eastern coast. And it's sad that in that part of the world, there are not many Africans who remained, because it was in the business of the Arab enslaver to castrate Africans. We never say that, but we must say it because it is historically significant. Then the Europeans came, the Portuguese came, the Spaniards came, the Germans came, the French came, the Belgians came. Africa became the hunting ground for the European colonizers, and we were the sport. We built, our ancestors built the United States of America. Our ancestors built Europe. And when slavery had lost its shine and sheen, the Europeans abolished it. But they replaced it with yet another pernicious enterprise, the colonization of Africa. The Europeans sat in Berlin, in Germany, in 1884, and they looked at the map of Africa and parceled it out. The British had their share. The Germans had their share, and Tanzania or Tanganyika was their share, as was Rwanda and Urundi. The Spaniards were Johnny-come-latelys in the arena, and they got little Equatorial Guinea and Southwest Africa. The French were here, the Portuguese were here, and we were colonized. This time round, they did not take us away. They came here, and they controlled us, and they told us, not in so many words, that we were children of a lesser God. And we were treated as if we were children of a lesser God. In fact, they told us that on the day of creation, we were merely hewers of wood and drawers of water. And if anybody were to doubt it, in 1948, it was more blatant when Hendrik Verwoerd instituted the apartheid regime in South Africa. But yet there is a sense in which the God that we worship never sleeps. The colonial enterprise ran its course, and the European tribes, the Europeans never called themselves tribes, they called them nations, were engaged in a war. First in 1918, the European tribes fought. And they had something called the League of Nations, which died. Then they fought again in 1945. And what is unique about the European nations is that when they are engaged in tribal wars, they call them world wars. So there was another war between 1945, 1939 and 1945. And after that, a new kid on the block, the United States of America, took the lead in saying that colonialism was something that was undesirable. But at that time, Africans were never quiet. Those who had been taken out had already started agitating. Many of us here will remember Marcus Garvey, of whom Bob Marley says, Garvey was a buffalo soldier in the heart of America. And many of us will remember W.E.B. Du Bois. Many of us will remember that they started agitating that Africans must regain their dignity and their independence. And indeed, in 1847, in Liberia, a small group of Africans were brought back in Monrovia, and Liberia became the first independent black nation in the continent of Africa. So soon thereafter in Sierra Leone, they also created yet another colony. But Africa was colonized, except Ethiopia, which they tried to take in 1938 and exiled Professor Dr. Haile Selassie. And unfortunately, they were defeated, as you remember, in the Battle of Adwa. Africa can defeat European tribes. This history is necessary that we are able to appreciate the freedom that we gained. So that Garvey came, W.E.B. Du Bois came, but there was another crop after the 1940s who had had the advantage of European education. And there were people in Europe also who are beginning to recognize that indeed equality was necessary. And this was not anything new. In 1776 in the United States of America, the American state sitting in Philadelphia in the United States of America declared unto themselves that all men are born equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. A few years later in France, after the revolution, they also recognized that we were to be equal, so that the colonized nations which had now taken Africans thought that they were safe. They had taken Leopold Sédar Senghor from Senegal to Paris, and they thought that they were creating a little Frenchman. Little did they know that they were creating somebody who would want to overthrow them. They took Félix Houphouët-Boigny from Côte d'Ivoire, and they thought that they were creating somebody who would be subservient to them. They took Ahmed Sékou Touré and Modibo Keïta, and they thought they were safe. Little did they know that they were creating the future leaders and agitators against French colonization. And it did not stop there. The Portuguese also took Agostinho Neto and Amilcar Cabral and Eduardo Mondlane to Lisbon. Little did they know that those individuals would be the catalyst that would be necessary in the process of decolonization. The British also had their fair share. They took others. They took Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere, Hastings Kamuzu Banda, Kenneth David Kaunda, and many others to the United Kingdom, Jomo Kenyatta. Little did they know that those would be the individuals who sometimes later, and in Ghana, of course, they took the Osagyefo, Kwame Nkrumah, and in Nigeria, they took Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, and Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Sultan of Sokoto. There is a sense, therefore, in which these individuals started recognizing that having been enslaved, having been colonized, we now had to liberate ourselves. And the agitation started. And Kwame Nkrumah and his Ghana acquired independence in 1957. And I still can hear Kwame Nkrumah through the vicissitudes of time saying in Accra, Ghana, that Ghana is free and will never be colonized again. But the freedom of Ghana means nothing if the rest of Africa is not free. I can hear